Hello and welcome to It's All Kicking Off, another WhatCulture football podcast with myself, Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture Football, and Adam Nicholas from WhatCulture Football, here to discuss another burning football issue. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Football wherever you get your podcasts from for daily football podcasts. As I said, though, joined by Adam Nicholas to talk about a huge issue sweeping the football world right now. Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona. Now, we've titled this video, Why Lionel Messi is Leaving Barcelona, and it looks now more than ever, Adam Nicholas, that is a possibility.
Yes, it's what it looks like, doesn't it? We've certainly been in this scenario, not quite as far down the road, but we've certainly been in a scenario before where questions have started to come up, haven't they, about Messi? Is this the time he's going to leave? We saw a while back, obviously, when Pep was joining Man City, there was that connection. People were thinking, is that the time for him to go? I know prior to that as well, that was like very early on, I think, in his Barca career. It was potentially a move to Inter Milan was on the cards. Didn't happen in the end. He ended up staying. But right now, feels like he's done a lot there, hasn't he? I mean, the guy's just hit, what was the milestone? 700, was it? 700 goals? We're talking like a wonderful time he's had at Barcelona. Won loads of stuff. Is it time for him to get a new challenge, Adam Wilbourn? Right now, when things are they just seem to be not quite going the way he might want them to.
Just to quickly speak on that Inter deal, I love the fact that at the time Inter were like, what's his release clause? Yeah, fine. We'll just triple his wages as well. So.
Oh yeah, 150 mil, not a problem. And while we're on, just give him 3 lots of wages. Maybe make it 4. See what happens.
You reference it there. There's differing reports. I think there was a report either yesterday or today from the president of Barcelona who basically said Lionel Messi is going to end his career here, which, whilst that does seem like a possibility, whether he'll stay with them, for the entirety of his football career would be a fairy tale story. But then again, I also look at that and go, well, you would say that if you want to try and keep him or persuade clubs to pay for him before his contract runs out. Yeah, his contract runs out in 2021. He's 33 years of age now. And contract talks have collapsed. And it feels like a variety of issues have led to this, that you can reference, obviously, the tax evasion stuff, which arguably led to him wanting to leave not just Barcelona, but Spain in its entirety. He's really been put through the ringer with all that. There's obviously accusations of him effectively running the club, deciding which players they sign and whether they hire or fire managers. But like you say, I'd say the overriding thing here is whether or not he wants to achieve something else, because he has done it all on multiple occasions with this club. Whether or not, like you say, and we're biased, he wants to try to do it on a cold, windy night. Well, not Stoke, because they're not in the Premier League, but in Manchester, let's just say. Newcastle.
Could he do it? I'm sure he could, to be honest. I know the joke's always been there, the rainy night in Stoke, but I think he could. Whether he will or not, though, is another thing entirely, because as we know in Spain, it's very politically led, isn't it? Like, particularly Real Madrid and Barcelona are very good at this. The presidents will come out and say a lot of things. They said a lot of things in the first place, which probably have got them in this position that they're in with Messi right about now. A lot of promises were made, I think, a while back. If you remember rightly, there were talk they were maybe going to bring Neymar back at the time, and he was quite looking forward to that. But then they ended up signing Griezmann, and they told him this at the same time as knowing full well that they were going to sign Griezmann. So you can't really trust that, and that must be hard, especially if you've been there that long. And this could just be a case of the straw that's breaking the camel's back at this point, because, as we said, he's been and done literally everything he can probably do with Barcelona now. The only things that seem to have eluded him greatly are like major international trophies. But like other than that, there's not much else he could probably do at Barcelona. At 33, if he's wanting a new challenge, somewhere else could be what he needs to do to achieve that. But like I say, we have been here before, and ultimately, is it just a bit of a pissing contest between presidents and players when it comes to getting what you want, when it comes to contract stuff? It's hard to gauge, isn't it? Messi's agent notoriously good at getting him a very good deal, I think we can say, in all of this.
Indeed, yeah. We should point out that this rumour has come from Spanish radio station Cadena Ser about all this contract issues. Like you say, there's been some stories made about unrest with between Messi and Griezmann, who is obviously a phenomenally talented player who has done well, but hasn't hit the ground running quite as much as they probably would have liked. And you can't escape, especially with video footage of it recently in that draw with Celta Vigo. Messi just seemingly downright ignoring Quique Setién, the current manager of Barcelona, and his assistants. You know, I don't doubt that Messi has a lot of influence on that club, and when things go wrong, they probably do look to him as a sort of figurehead, arguably even more than the manager. But I don't know. It's hard to argue whether or not he'd want to risk, because at the same time as him potentially, like you say, solidifying his legacy, because the only question mark that, let's say, Ronaldo stands, for example, put against him is, well, yeah, he's done it all, but he's done it all at Barcelona, which is, you know, no mean feat. It's still an achievement to do what he's done, and like you say, 700 goals, and the way he's played, and the teams he's had around, players he's built around him. You can't argue with the joy it is to watch Messi in full flow, and you know, we know players like Gary Lineker adore him. I just wonder whether or not he wants to try and take that risk with a Manchester City or even a Manchester United, as has been suggested.
There's a few teams, I think, where Messi could fit. Let's be honest, Messi could fit in pretty much anywhere you'd imagine. He's that kind of guy. Whether or not the rest of the team would work with him is the question. He'd be fine, I'm sure. Manchester City seems like a simple fit. A lot of people are going to point there, aren't they? Because they've got the money. They've got the manager who Messi would probably want to work with again, you'd imagine, if he's trying to rekindle that magic. And the style of football isn't too dissimilar, is it? It's fast, it's flowing, it's the tiki-taka stuff, it's pep. It's not going to be that hard for him to get into that, or certainly into that frame of mind, I guess, that they'd have at Manchester City. Manchester United, I think, there'd be some interesting symmetry there, I guess. If he was to go there at his age, you've got Ronaldo used to play there and then spent the rest of his career elsewhere. Messi to go to Man U. I'm sure he would go and be the perfect signing to kind of rekindle something for Manchester United. But you just would worry. I would worry that he turns up and doesn't hit the ground running at Man United. I don't know if that's the club that is, like, City feels like it's ready-made. Or goes to Liverpool, it's ready-made. Those are two clubs that are at their absolute peak at the moment, and they are only getting better, I think, which doesn't make any sense. They can't be at their peak and get better. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. But Man United would be more of a risk, I would think. I would love the idea of him going to the Serie A, to be honest. I mean, I'd love to see him in the Prem, but I do think there was little whispers. Could you imagine if he and Ronaldo got together at Juventus? I mean, it's madness. It's absolute madness. But imagine if they decided, yeah, okay, why don't we just do something really stupid and just put these two in this team for one season? It would be a car crash. It would be wonderful. There's no way it would work. The egos would be everywhere. But I mean, if he does indeed want to make a huge signing for a big club, Adam Wilbourn, then I mean, St James's Park is a lovely place to go and really get engaged with 52,000 fans. I am, of course, just joking, but it'd be fascinating to see where he might end up.
Well, the thing is, the more this story sort of snowballs, the more wild speculation begins.
And it will. It's bound to, isn't it? It's messy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, any sort of unrest at Barcelona, especially with the way his contract is structured. Obviously, his contract runs out in 2021, but I do believe he can leave the club before then if he gives the club notice.
Yeah.
But like I say, because of the sway he has on them, they're not going to be forcing a player like him to stick around. He adores Barcelona, clearly. He's spent his life there. He's achieved, as I said, everything he can there. And yet, yeah, once the moment you succumb to these rumours about him leaving, why not go to Man City, like you say, with Pep Guardiola? Why not try and do it at the club that made Ronaldo the player he is today? Why not go full fantasy football and have him, Ronaldo, bloody Dybala, all of them at Juventus? Or, like you say, him be the marquee signing for Newcastle United?
I mean, the latter of those suggestions is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But I imagine if we do end up getting taken over, there'll be loads of stupid talk about this kind of thing. I do find it interesting, though, that Messi was able to get a clause in that basically said he could leave at the end of the season if he was to give notice and if he wanted to. It's always tough because the managers Barcelona brought in recently they have this habit, don't they, of bringing in these managers who kind of are there to say yes to what the club wants, rather than a manager who might come in to try and change things up or bring their own philosophies or whatever. They want someone who's going to fit that. I feel like it must be frustrating, though, if you're Lionel Messi, and whether the club are succeeding or failing, whatever, he's that big of a player, he's that important of a player. Ultimately, whatever's happening with the club reflects on him, doesn't it? Like, and he must be at a point now where he's probably like, there's that many people who are talking, saying, oh, he's doing this or he's doing that. Even if indeed he's not. He might have had an argument with a coach on the sideline or whatever and looked to be disgruntled by the whole thing.
There was that stuff with Eric Abidal a while back.
Yeah, but everybody can have that. That can happen at every football. That may happen at every training session. You don't know because you're not there watching. Like, yes, it's usually the sign of something bigger going on. But ultimately, that could be an isolated incident. And yes, you're going to seek Messi when you want to talk about if you've got worries about where the club are going, if you want to maybe discuss who the club should be signing. They're probably going to get his input because he's been there for so long. He knows the team, the players, and the philosophy of the club better than anybody at this point. But it doesn't make him the sole person responsible for all of the successes or failures, does it?
You reference the managers there, like you say, and I completely agree with where you're coming from. And arguably, like you say, the difference between English football and Spanish football is this whole issue of presidents, because that sort of overarching role sometimes sort of supersedes the manager, and presidents can get brought in on a wave of promises of signings or managerial appointments or whatever it may be. And it could just be the point that, like we say, Messi has decided he wants to prove himself somewhere else. In terms of Barcelona convincing him to stay, is it about what they can still achieve this season? Because, we are, I think 4 games from the end of La Liga. They are 4 points adrift from Real Madrid, although I do believe Real Madrid have to go and play Villarreal, who are playing well, of course, although Barcelona just beat them 4-1 over the weekend. Is it a case of them showcasing the fact that they can put up a challenge and really step forward as we head towards the next season in La Liga? And also, they've got a Champions League second leg against Napoli to come in August, which is crucial for them.
I think that whatever happens by the end of this season could determine exactly what Lionel Messi does, because ultimately they've got that second leg of the Champions League. I mean, how long ago it was they played the first leg, the 1-1 draw with Napoli, and you think they've got that to come. That's coming in the beginning of August. That's got to be, if they're having these sort of talks now, you've got to think that's a huge deal. He probably wants to be competing. He's one of, if not the best, one of the two we'll always talk about in the world. He should be competing. He should be in every single semi-final or cup final. That's where he wants to be. That's the tier of performer he is. So with that in mind, you're like, if Barcelona can't get in them places every year, which is not a guarantee, of course, he's going to get frustrated. He wants to be playing those things. He wants to be adding to the tally. He wants to be adding all these cups and all the achievements that he's made. And if Barcelona can get somewhere in this Champions League, if they can win it, which might be a long shot at this point, who knows? But if they can win it, I feel like that would go a long way to helping him feel like maybe he's had it. You know what it's like. If he's he's in a point now where he's been married to this woman for ages, and they've hit a bit of a rocky spell, and they need to get through the marriage in the next hurdle. So essentially, winning the Champions League is like Messi getting a dog. Him and his club could get this dog, and it could keep them for another couple of years, keep them happy, bring them closer together, or have a child, of course. Other people always have children. There you go. That's what I feel like that could be if he can get some success. And obviously, the Liga could be more difficult of an ask, I think, but you never know. Football's weird, and there's a couple of games to go still.
The irony of you saying this to me on the day of my first wedding anniversary is not lost on me here, by the way. But yeah,
so you're getting a dog then, are you?
Yeah. So I couldn't get over. I think a lot of casual La Liga fans will have just probably assumed that Barcelona had this league because yes, you never discount Real Madrid, but they haven't filled that gap, that void left by Ronaldo, and yet both sides have not been, at the top of their game this season when it comes to La Liga football. And the fact that Ramos is there doing the business for Real Madrid week in, week out, and they can afford to lose a game in this run-in, and still Real Madrid, if they win all the remaining games, will win La Liga, which is astonishing. I sense to some more casual Spanish football fans, but I think the dream final would have to be Manchester City versus Barcelona, wouldn't it?
It would be fascinating, wouldn't it? I mean, the narrative's there from Pep Guardiola's perspective. But imagine that, like Manchester City, who will be desperate to make a statement after obviously losing the league so like drastically to Liverpool. Yes, they did get that modicum of revenge with a 4-0 victory the other week. But I mean, if they can win the Champions League, I mean that's got to count for something, hasn't it? Like, the one thing that they has eluded them for this point, that's the one thing they'd want to put the stamp on to make the season at least look like it was sort of worth it. But against Barcelona, you've got me dreaming now. You've got me dreaming.
Well, if this was a book or a film or whatever, the story is right there. We're not suggesting, Lionel Messi will leave Barcelona at the end of this season, although anything can happen. Manchester City, as things stand, will not be in the Champions League next season.
Yep.
But to return to the Champions League the year after, 2021-2022 season, with what would be, a 34-year-old Lionel Messi, with Pep Guardiola, I mean, that's arguably one of the reasons why Pep may stick around in Man City, because he's done, almost everything. If he can win the Champions League, he's almost done everything there. But it's a fairy tale. It's a storyline that you couldn't really write. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm lending such credence to now being the time that Messi, or at least in the next year or so, that he could leave Barcelona. The one thing I will say, along with all the talk of presidents and promises and what have you, the one thing I think could swing it is the speculation around Xavi returning to Barcelona to manage them. But we've discussed about issues that Messi has had with managers currently and in the past. You can't argue with someone like Xavi and what a name and all the history that he has with the club, and of course with Lionel Messi, what a difference maker that could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, Lionel Messi is the top level performer in world football. He wants to be playing with and playing for managers and players who have the same ethos, the same aspirations that he does. And you look at the managers who he succeeded the most, and obviously Pep Guardiola's legacy in Barcelona is legendary. That is a guy who did and played and created this atmosphere that he loved and thrived in. Everything after that for Messi's probably been a bit of a letdown. He probably hasn't quite ticked the box for him. If Xavi is indeed to come in, now that's a gamble, isn't it? Because not necessarily going to be a great manager just because he was a great player. But what he will have done is he'll have played under Pep for years, and he'll have played with that team. Quite a lot of the team who are still there, he'll have been part with. The confidence it'll instill in them. We've seen it with Frank Lampard in the role at Chelsea, like going back to a club and ultimately a bunch of guys respecting this man who's coming in, and he's done everything with the club, so they know that they can trust him and he understands the club better than most. Same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer going back to Manchester United. These are, if you've been bred in a club and you understand what that club's after, you do sometimes. You might not be the perfect manager to begin with, but you understand the club better than most, which gives you a huge head start against someone coming in who isn't necessarily sort of familiar with the ways of the football club.
No, I completely agree. I'm not suggesting that managing the likes of Real Madrid or Barcelona is an easy prospect by any stretch of the imagination. There's the argument of what's the best league in the world. It's often a two-horse race in the Liga, although Atletico should never be discounted in my eyes. But yeah, I think there's an argument to be made to a certain extent, at least, that if you come in and just play the Barcelona way or just play the Real Madrid way, we all know the style of football that they're going to play, and it's just about getting the best out of those players. And the likes of Zinedine Zidane, and as you mentioned there, Pep Guardiola, and potentially Xavi, having not only been a part of that setup, but been able to adapt that into a managerial understanding of it, of being able to sort of overview the whole thing and go, right, well, if I was playing in this team, where would I like to see improvements be made? Would I like to see defensively it being shored up, or do we need more goals or whatever? Because on paper, Barcelona still are one of the best teams in the world. And arguably, you drop Messi into any team, even Chesterfield, and they're one of the best teams in the world because I'll take it because of his prowess and the stuff that he can do that almost defies logic. So I think Xavi, if I was Barcelona president, I would be moving heaven and earth to get Xavi there, because I think that's the one thing that can tether Messi to Barcelona for life. Because 33 years of age, who knows? I mean, Ronaldo is still performing years after I think many people thought he would fall off his peak It's about adapting your game. Messi seems to have followed Ronaldo in terms of just being able to know what your strengths are and where you need to concentrate on as the years get by you. I think that could well be the reason why he stays at Barcelona. And if not, if Xavi doesn't happen, in my opinion, he could leave Barcelona, whether it be to MLS or Qatar or, fingers crossed, like you say, Serie A or Premier League is to be decided. But yeah, one more go around with Pep at Man City. I mean, I'd love to see it. I'm biased, but I'd love to see it.
I think you've nailed the two options for me there. I think if they can get Xavi in or Pep at Man City, I think, as we've seen, when Pep went to Barcelona, he was in the same shoes that Xavi would be in when he went to Barca, like fairly unproven, let's be honest. Zinedine Zidane. Real Madrid have had to go crawling back to Zidane because the guy turned up, won everything, and then retired or left at the top, didn't he? And then they couldn't rekindle the magic, so they brought him back, and they're going to win, potentially going to win the league again already. That's the kind of impact these players have because they understand the club. Pep or Xavi, that's probably your choices. Or maybe that mad team at Juventus. Who knows?
We'll have to wait and see. We'll, of course, keep you updated on any developments with this story. But I sense this is gone for the comment section. Do let us know your thoughts on the future of Lionel Messi and why we think he's leaving Barcelona. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Football, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily football podcasts. Plus, I know you will. Let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureFC. Watch, they can follow both of us. You can follow Adam Nicholas at...
It's Adam Nicholas, and you can follow Adam Wilbourn at...
Adam Wilbourn. As I said, follow us all at WhatCultureFC. We'll be back tomorrow. But for now, this has been It's All Kicking Off. My thanks to Adam Nicholas. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you soon.